are so scared of. Like, new therapists are so scared of spinal braces. One, they don't see a lot of them. Two, they're afraid to take it off because I think they think the person's just gonna collapse or something, like, you know, with no muscle support. And three, I just think they're because it's the spine, they're so afraid of doing something wrong. If you're not sure of how to get a brace on and off, usually the patient will know, or if you have the opportunity, if it's a custom one, or a semi-custom, if you have the opportunity to be there when the orthotist is there and watch them put it on, take it on, put it on and take it off, and ask them questions about it, that's great. Okay. When you're seeing someone immediate post-surgical, sometimes you have that opportunity to be in the room in the hospital when the orthotist is there, and that always helps. But for the most part, the patients will know. If this is a brace that they've had, the patients will know. So let's just run through some of them and what they're for. Okay, so corsets are usually soft supports. They help to increase intra-abdominal pressure, which helps to take kind of some stress off of the discs. They're not really meant to be stabilizing. You can use this like after a fusion or something like this, but you might use this for someone with some back pain, someone with some muscle pain, someone who's been in a car accident, you know, that has like almost like a whiplash, but in the lumbar spine, you know, really just kind of musculoskeletal strain a little bit. And it's kind of to unweight those muscles and just let them rest and quiet down. But they usually have a lot of buckles, you know, and or Velcro, so even these soft corsets can be a little intimidating. Okay. I had a woman when I worked at Beth Israel, I worked there for like 2 or 3 years after graduation, and I had a woman, she was the wife of the chief donor for Beth Israel Hospital. And I was like, oh good God, like they donated millions of dollars every year to Beth Israel Hospital, and I was like, why do I have to see her? Why do I have to see her for backs? I hate backs. And so I walk in her room, and she's got this like contraction of a back brace, and I'm like, good God, like, you know. And I was so scared to even go near her and touch her. And she wound up being the nicest woman ever, and she really told me about her brace and how to get it on and off. But I was petrified to even touch the woman, so I'm like, they donate millions of dollars a year. I don't even remember what her diagnosis was. But it's like spinal surgery, and she's got this brace that's like sitting in the corner, and I was supposed to get her up, and I couldn't get her up without putting the brace on, and I was freaking out in the room. I was like, I don't want to do this, but she was fine. But it gets intimidating, it really does. So those are your soft corsets. They really are not going to, like I said, do much to stabilize. Then your rigid orthoses are much more for stabilizing. Lots of times they're after surgery. They may be a step down after a stabilization surgery, where the person is able to get up and mobilize. They could be for a stable spinal fracture, but they want them, you know, really to limit motion so that fracture can heal. You know, there's a whole host of reasons why you might see some people on these. So they go by some manufacturers' names. I've tried to stay away from the manufacturers' names. They really should be named by the area of the body they're on and what they're controlling. And then you'll always know. You can always figure out how it works. Okay, so the first one, lumbosacral flexion extension control brace. So you can see that one that's on the left, that if they have that on, certainly they're not going to be able to extend much, okay, because it's higher in the back. So that's going to limit you from extending backwards. They might be limited a little in lumbar flexion with this one. Okay. Sometimes, depending on how big that anterior portion is, they might be able to bend over a little in the thorax. Okay, but it certainly will limit you from doing this, you know, down into lumbar flexion. Okay. The one on the right, on the bottom, thoracolumbo-sacral flexion extension and lateral control. So you can see that's a higher profile brace, okay, or a bigger profile brace. And because it comes all the way up into the thorax, and it's got the uprights in the back, here, and here, okay? And then you've got straps in the front. So you've got the uprights, and then those straps come down to here. That's how it's controlling your flexion and extension. You can't flex past those straps if they're tight, and you can't extend back because of those uprights. Okay? It will be a lateral control if it has lateral uprights. Okay, so you can see in that picture, they've got these rigid supports, where the black is more rigid. Okay, they've got these rigid supports laterally, so that person will not be able to laterally side bend either. Okay, so the name should tell you what it does. All braces, all orthotics work on a 3-point pressure system. You've got to figure out kind of where those pressures are. So if I take a pen, okay, and I do this, okay, like this, where's that pen going to snap? Yeah, where my middle pressure is, right? Okay, so that's a 3-point pressure system. You've usually got one directing force, and above and below that, some type of stabilizing force, or a counter force. I shouldn't really say stabilizing, a counter force. Some of these braces, it's a little hard to figure out, well, which are those counter forces and which is the moving force. Some of them you can figure out very easily. Once they start with uprights and this and that, it gets really hard. And I'm not gonna ask you which is that directing force, but just know that all braces are working on that 3-point pressure system. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna have some of these examples for you, hopefully next week. OT has some examples of neck braces, but with the renovation they did, they don't have all their equipment back yet in their lab. So hopefully by next week, we'll be able to get some of you guys to play around with them a little bit. So the one on the left is an old Boston brace. Okay, and that is, actually that's a Philadelphia. Take that one away, because that's gonna come up later on cervical orthosis. So look at the one in the middle. So what do you think that's controlling? What motion? Yeah, so that's gonna be a flexion control brace. Okay? Well, you can't see it in the picture, that pad posteriorly is not very big. Okay, it's really just here. So what that brace is doing is, so that you can see your 3 points of pressure. You've got on the sternum, at the pelvis, and then posteriorly, through like in the thoracolumbar region. So, this woman is not going to be able to flex forward, right, because she's limited there, but she is able to extend around that pad, because it's not big. If that pad is bigger, you know, more like the blue one from the previous page, that would be an extension control brace. Okay, this one is not, you can't really see how big the pad is in the picture, but it's not a huge pad. Okay, it's just kind of right here, so she can kind of extend around that a little bit. So it's really a flexion control brace.
Just be limited like side bend.
In this one, you would be. Most of your flexion extension braces will have a lateral control also. Some of them don't. I mean, if they take out those uprights, you might be able to flex a little bit, but you're gonna brace, you know, from here to here. So it's not rigid, but it's not gonna allow you full motion. Okay, the Knight Taylor brace, how would you classify that one? Because Knight Taylor's it's not the manufacturer, but that's not gonna tell you. What would you classify that as? Is it cervical? Yeah, so it's not really cervical, it's not controlling cervical spine, right? They're gonna have full motion of cervical spine. So what do you think it is? Okay, so first, what areas? Thoracolumbar. Okay, now what motions is it controlling? It's definitely extension, right? Because you've got those rigid uprights in the back. What else do you think? Side bending, because you've got the lateral uprights here. Now that closes, I don't know if you can see the little picture on the right there in pink. Okay. That is a corset in the front. That's how that goes on. So anything that looks like plasticky is plastic, but then there's a soft corset that's attaching to these lateral uprights and closing this way. Will that control flexion? Are there straps around her shoulder?
Are they rigid?
They need to be.
If they're rigid, then you can't move, but if they're flexible, you can still flex.
Well, they're not gonna be elastic. They're usually made of like that Dacron webbing material. So what do you think? Will that control flexion? Well, exactly. So she's got these shoulder straps that are attached to your uprights, coming around like this, right under your axilla, coming back down. How is she going to flex against that? She's gonna hit those straps right there. Okay, so even though the front is a softer corset, okay, it is a thoracolumbar flexion extension lateral control brace. Okay, so if you kind of tweeze it apart and look at the brace, you can figure out what it does. Okay? Yeah, I mean, she might be limited here a little bit, but she'd be able to flex a little in a dress as well. Okay, so I didn't want to put in 20 pictures of kind of the same thing. You know, hopefully with these few pictures you can get the idea of what they do. I said the hardest part is like, look at that middle one. How the heck are you getting that thing on? Do they step into it? Do they? So that's kind of the most intimidating part. You look at this thing and you're kind of like, I don't know how to do this. So ask them, you know, if they've been wearing it for a while. That will have something that kind of hooks around this way. So you put it on them and then you hook it around that way and fasten it that way. But they're all a little different. You know, the next one might hook a little differently. So you've got to really just kind of look at the brace and figure out.
Are these meant to be able to put on by yourself?
Some of them, yeah, usually.
I had that one, I couldn't do that one. It was
Oh, really?
too much stuff going on. I couldn't do it.
How old were you?
This was 2 years ago, it was my car accident.
Oh, really? And you couldn't get it on?
No, it was like moving, it like hurt.
Well,
Strap.
because you're a little limited in moving too. A lot of them are meant to be put on your own. And usually what you'll do is, because then the other question is, well, I don't know how tight to put it, right? Because I don't want to hurt them, and it's their spine, so I don't want it too loose, because then it's not going to stabilize, but I don't want it too tight, because they have to breathe. So, like I said, I hate them. So what they'll do is you'll usually mark with a pen if they're Velcro, okay? And they'll tighten it until they see like that pen mark through the D-ring. Okay, of course, that's gonna change though over time, right? The Velcro stretches out, they might lose weight, they get used to it, they can put it a little tighter, whatever, but that's usually how, you know, you'll mark it somewhere with, okay, this is how tight I want to put it on, and then they look for that marking. Okay. But yes, some of them are clunkier, so we get on than others. So cervical collars. Okay, so here's my caveat about cervical collars. What'd you say?
They suck. I had
They
one of those
suck.
too.
Yeah, they are so overused that they wind up causing a lot of times more pathology than what the person has. If you are in a soft collar like this bottom picture, the only thing that's really limiting is flexion and extension. But what happens is it's soft and they tend to just kind of sink down into it and rest on it. Okay, and then these muscles that they're trying to rest get so much weaker because they're not doing anything, because the person's just walking around and they're kind of just falling into this brace. And then you go and you take the brace off and the person is so weak in their cervical spine musculature that they've got all these other problems. Who is in the hole with that? Anybody? Go ahead. Everyone? Really? Because they're very quiet. Everyone. Okay. So they tend to be overused. These soft collars, and this is not for the rigid collars, but these soft collars should be used during kind of that acute musculoskeletal strain period. So how long is that usually? Think of a whiplash or car accident, you know, you hurt yourself playing a sport. How long is that? Is that 4 months like some people wear them? No. I mean, that's usually a week to 10 days. Okay, for those muscles to really rest. If the person is allowed and there's no stability issues, they should be coming out of that collar though and stretching and maybe doing some isometrics, maybe doing some gentle isotonic exercise while they're in there. Certainly maybe not the first few days while they really have to rest. But you don't want to make problems where there weren't problems before. And so many of these people, they're given a soft collar and they're never told when to stop using it. And they just keep wearing it. Because now every time they take it off, their neck hurts because the muscles are so weak, so they think they should have it on again, so they keep it on. Okay, so please don't abuse those soft collars. Okay. MS here means musculoskeletal, not multiple sclerosis. So when you start getting into your more rigid collars, it's a very different scenario than those soft collars. So I've given you some names because you'll see them. The Philadelphia collar is kind of the next step up from a soft collar. So that's kind of a dense, almost like a dense styrofoam material. And you can see it does kind of the same thing though, but it's gonna provide a little more rigidity. So now you can use it maybe post-surgically, post-fracture, where they wanna stabilize, but there's no, maybe it didn't need to be stabilized so much. I should have just stepped over. Sorry, that would have been much easier. Okay, so that's kind of the next step up. But you wouldn't usually use this like immediate post-surgical for someone who had a stabilization surgery, because it's just not gonna give you as that much stability that you need. So the Minerva then is kind of a step up from that. Okay? So you can see that's a pretty heavy-duty brace. You know, she's in there like this, so she's not gonna get really any side bending or any flexion and extension. There's also a little posterior occipital pad. So that's gonna be one that maybe they put in them post-surgically. Okay, where they really need a little more stabilization. You will need to know whether you can take them out of that to do exercise. Because how long does it take for bony healing? Around 6 weeks, right? So if you have someone that comes to you after 2 weeks, you wanna know what they did in that surgery. You would need very specific orders on whether you can take that brace off of them to exercise. Because if they have a bony graft in there, if they've got something else in there, and they are not supposed to move yet, you shouldn't be moving them. Okay? For post-orthosis, did you have a question, Rebecca?
I was just gonna ask if they have to wear them for life, or it depends on.
No, it depends what it is. They usually you don't wear them.
Okay.
For post-orthosis is very similar to Minerva, it's just a different one. So same indications, all of that. In cases of severe RA, really bad RA, where they've lost all ligamentous support, they've got, they could have fracture dislocations in the cervical spine, which you can guess is never a good thing, okay, particularly in the cervical spine. That could be deadly. So they might, those are people, Rebecca, that might be in that brace, kind of for all waking hours. When they're up and they're moving and they would need to turn, just to stabilize them, so they don't cause injury. Halo. Okay, so the halo is kind of the granddaddy of them all. So this would be indicated after spinal fusion, after a fracture dislocation where they've gone in there and they've stabilized it with either bony implants or screws, pins, whatever they're gonna use. Okay. So these posts, so you can see the thing that's around his head, there are screws coming into them, screwed into their skull. Okay. So, like I said, this is the most rigid that you can get. And then it's attached to those uprights, which are attached to a body jacket. There is no cervical motion in that at all. Okay? They can come unattached just to put clothing on underneath it, but those are screwed into their head. Yeah, and they may be in that thing for 6 to 8 weeks until they get bone fusion. Start to get bone fusion.
Is that what they're doing now, if someone else gets cervical fusion?
They may put them in a halo or slightly stepped down version of that. So, I have to tell you a story, because on my first clinical, so I was kind of where you guys are now, so think about how much you know. And so I went to my first clinical, and I treated this not young, teenager, still young, boy who was in a car accident down on South Shore. And they did a spinal stabilization and put him in a halo. And so my job, remember where you guys are, first clinical, was to get him up and walk. Okay, so besides being petrified, again, I spent that entire clinical petrified. So this is not really showing it so well, this picture, but this is the newer version. But back when I went to school, like in the dark ages, they had these uprights attached to a full body jacket, like this. So now, like what normally would be a width to grab somebody like this to transfer him, he's like this big. And the body jacket comes down to here on him. And it's slippery, it's plastic, right? So how do you, there's nothing to grab onto to pick him up. He was a TBI, had the spinal injury, was really minimally communicative. So now I've got him in the parallel bars and I'm trying to stand him up. And he's got some issues with TBI, you know, from the tone. And I'm trying to grab around him. And the only place to grab is the bottom of the jacket, like this. Without even thinking that, well, when I grab, and I didn't kill him, don't worry. But when you're grabbing the bottom of the jacket to stand him up, it's screwed to his head. So like, and he was fine, I didn't do any damage, but like I think about it now, and I'm like, what kind of forces was I transmitting into his skull? See, so don't worry guys, it's okay if you mess up a little on the clinic. So I'm trying to transfer, I'm picking him up, and I couldn't grab him anywhere else but to grab underneath the jacket and pull him up. So my CI, I'm standing with him now, and I'm thinking I'm really good because I'm standing with him. CI comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, she goes, you might not want to grab him by the body jacket. And I'm like, shit. You know, I'm grabbing like this, and I'm like, oh my God, did I just loosen the screws or whatever? But he was fine. And he actually wound up doing quite well in the long run. But yeah, I was petrified. So what you need to be concerned about with those pins, one is grabbing onto anything you shouldn't be grabbing onto. But you have to look for infection, because that is a portal for infection. So they will do some daily cleansing of those pin sites, you know, and things like that. So, and like I said, they may be in those for 6 to 8 weeks. If it's delayed fusion, even longer. But they would not come out of this and go to nothing. They would go to one of those step-down colors. Okay, so maybe Philadelphia or a Minerva instead of that. Okay. So you can read that study that talks about kind of the benefits and outcomes associated with pins and braces. So, braces for scoliosis. So the Boston brace is down on the left, and then the Milwaukee brace is the older looking one on the right. So nowadays, they're usually for scoliosis putting them in Boston braces if they need bracing. So if they're somewhere in that moderate range, these they can come out of for exercise. And the studies have shown that they really don't need to wear them more than 8 hours a day. Okay? They used to keep them in for all waking hours, which, once again, you're talking about a teenage girl wearing this brace for all waking hours. She could come out of it for gym or come out of it for after school sports, but essentially she was supposed to be in that for all waking hours. So that was tough. What they will do now is they'll semi-custom them. So they'll come with a basic size for the child, and then they'll put pads in depending on where they need their forces. So if someone is, you know, concave this way, they might put a pad in here to bring them back up. And you can see on her left side, where she's got, it's a little higher, closer to her axilla. So that's someone who's going to be a left concavity, and coming up this high tends to straighten you out then. Okay, so she's got that force up very high on her left. So they'll customize a semi-custom brace by putting pads where they need them to get the forces to try to straighten out the spine. Okay, they used to customize all of them and do a body cast and things like that, and they just don't need to. You know, the materials have gotten so much better that they don't need to now. So this Milwaukee brace was what that girl that I went to school with was in, and you can see how cumbersome that is. And it comes all the way up, and there's like an occiput thing and a chin plate, and it's just horrible. It's a horrible, horrible brace. That the Boston brace you can wear under clothing, no one sees it, and you have to think of who your clientele is. Okay, you know, most adolescent girls are not going to wear that brace anymore, and it's going to sit in their closet. Whereas if they can wear one that's under clothing and few people see it, it's not so bad. My sister had scoliosis. I don't even know what her curve was. She's absolutely fine, but she had a here, similar, you can see where those forces might be needed. So the x-ray on the left, is without a brace, and the picture without a brace, and then you see her in the brace, and the x-ray corresponding on the right is when she's in the brace. So that brace, I mean, that really helped to correct her curve when she did that. And once again, you can see she's coming up a little higher on the left to try to straighten her out there. Okay? So this says it's usually worn 16 to 20 hours. You know, this one says they can wear it greater than 18 hours. Some of the newer ones are saying 8 hours. You kind of have to see. You got to see what the doc says and see, you know, how your patient is progressing. Okay, but they don't need to be in at 23 hours like they used to. Okay, so that's a Boston brace. That's really the lecture. It's an easy lecture. Yeah, right? Any questions? No? Go home and get some sleep. Oh, wait. Okay, so the final has been tallied. Only 29 you voted. So the rest you can't complain about it. You can't complain if you don't vote. Will be on February 27th. Okay? Your video projects are due that day. Okay, and your video projects will be presented March 6th. And then you do not have class work